And our last speaker for this morning is with us live in the room. You've heard him ask a challenging question already this morning. David Clarke, a former police officer in the City of London Police, specialising in fraud, public safety, counter-terrorism, and chairman of the Fraud Advisory Panel charity. So without further ado, because I know David can speak finally for himself, I'm going to consign you to the back there because you need to speak to our colleagues overseas. David, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, lovely. Thanks very much, and thank you for inviting me to speak. I was actually going to join you from the United States via Zoom, but everything changed, so I'm back here, and it's much nicer to be here than travelling on flights. How do you follow that last one? I'll give you some of the impact. We talked there about how was the UK, how was the world prepared for COVID? And I think you're hearing we did some sensational work. It was like a war footing. I'll tell you what some of the things we did and how the pandemic helped with impacts on fraud. And I would start by saying there is something coming. There's a tsunami of fraud coming. A huge amount of fraud is coming our way, which you'll have seen in the press is starting to emerge now. And HMRC, the Revenue and Customs in the UK, have started to talk about how much of this stimulus money was meant for honest companies has actually gone to criminals. And what I'll talk about is how my charity worked to try with partners to try and protect the UK. And I'll also link into how people and AI, artificial intelligence technologies, there are some gaps we need to fill. I can't give you all of this, but you've actually got Professor Alison Wakefield talking this afternoon, who is a fantastic resource and expert on this subject. She'll talk to you about some of these things, but I'll touch on them to give you an idea, because it's almost too late. If we don't start now, it's almost too late. And this is serious because I know, speaking at coffee, speaking to other people, this threatens democracy. Criminals are threatening democracy. Let me explain why in this quick canter through. First of all, who are we? The Fraud Advisory Panel. We are a charity. I was a policeman for 1 million years before many of you were born. I retired from the City of London Police. I was actually a military policeman before that in the Royal Air Force. But what our job, we're volunteers. I'm a volunteer. We're an independent voice. Please join us. Go online, join us. It costs next to nothing to be a member. And we also have a future fraud professional, which I would love to invite our cadets to come along and join. Join the fraud fight, join the cyber fight. You are our future. So please, look at what we're doing on there. We collaborate, we influence, and we're independent. We do lots of research. What does that mean in the time of a crisis? I'll show you. All of you here, whether you have been in law enforcement or been in the military, you've all seen what happens, and bad things escalate very fast. This is a slide I used to use a couple of years ago. When I was teaching with the OSCE in the United Nations in Europe. I used to do some police training there. And they're all things that I policed actually in my career. Up the top there is when I first joined the City of London, I was working with the Metropolitan Police on the poll tax riots, which was a peaceful protest that turned very violent. I thought I'd left Northern Ireland and the violence, and we had bombings in London. Fascinating to hear the story there of Sweden. You know, were things worse before? Were they better? Actually, look at these pictures. We had some very dark times in the United Kingdom, very dark times. Some of the things we're seeing today are nothing as dark as we had before. Doesn't mean they're okay. Got terrible fraud, but look at some of those bombs, and even the anti-capitalist riots in June 1999, 7/7 in London, the horrific slaughter of innocent people on the transport system. But also not forgetting that under all this, criminals need money to operate as fraud. They need dirty money. They need to move that money through international systems. And London, the City of London, is the centre of financial services around the world. And that's why fraudsters and money launderers love London. That's why you have big cars, big houses, big everything. That's why you have corruption. And we've got to watch it because it leads to those other things. And before the pandemic, here were some figures from PwC and others. We had lots of things. Computer misuse offences were very big. The college has done lots of great work on this, has expertise. About a third of respondents in a survey said that bribery and corruption were widely happening. There were 3.6 million fraud incidents, half of those were cyber related. About 40% of all crime now in the UK is fraud. Lots of people will have been victim of fraud if you haven't been already. And, you know, fraudsters were stealing billions before. What's happened is during the pandemic, there was a great opportunity, as you know, in a crisis like in the bombings at Westminster Bridge and Manchester. The criminals see this as a great opportunity. Hurricane Katrina in the United States was a great opportunity. They set up fake websites. So we knew what was going to happen. And one of the things I did as chairman of the charity, we have a great network. We went into lockdown. My own company, I'm a director of a Queen's Award-winning company. I left that, came into my charity, and we brought together 75 partners, including Cabinet Office, City of London Police, Law Society, lots and lots of others, international chambers of commerce, to start sharing information. And we were sharing actionable intelligence on crime. But rather than me tell you it, I'll give you my AGM. I've got an avatar here. This is one of the products that my company works on. Here was the avatar, which my charity seems to think is better than me. You'll probably agree. Can we play this? Is this possible to play that? Can we do that? Or do I need to press something else? No? I don't know if we are. No? Not able to play that? Okay, use the link, yeah, got it there.
My name is Michael Cross.
That's not me.
Yes, One AGM of the Fraud Advisory Panel. I am the avatar of Chairman David Clarke. He's in the physical office today, but wanted me to speak. Today, powerful AI technology, like me, can help keep millions of people safe, and there is more innovation coming. However, the information, source, and the digital platform it appears on must be trusted, secure, and verified, like me. I'll repeat that in Spanish.
Hoy en día, la tecnología y como yo puede ayudar a proteger a millones de personas y van a seguir llegando más innovaciones. Sin embargo, la información, la fuente y la plataforma digital en la que aparece deben ser fiables, seguras y deben estar verificadas, como yo.
When the pandemic hit last year, corrupt people weaponized the internet and have stolen billions of pounds, making this potentially the biggest fraud in history. With your help, we rapidly mobilized the counter-fraud community. Within hours of lockdown, we united over 70 partners from the public, private and third sector under the banner of the COVID-19 Fraud Watch and began sharing live intelligence on emerging threats that were acted upon. This was a partnership of trust and included Cabinet Office, City Police, Department for International Trade, the Charity Commission, International Chambers of Commerce, and our founding partner and backer, the ICAEW. It was an honour to lead this group whose messages went global and stopped people falling victim. They identified fraudsters and provided solutions. That's a loud voice for a charity with just 2 staff working from home. This year was also packed with webinars, consultation responses, interviews on television and radio, letters to ministers and the Auditor General, and a virtual fraud training programme for the ICAW Members Help Desk. We even ran International Charity Fraud Awareness Week, and will do so again. I give my heartfelt thanks to Mia Campbell and Zara Fisher for their superhuman powers, and to you for backing me in this time of danger. And to my company, family, friends for their love and tolerating my odd modus operandi. Our emergency action was unprecedented and visionary. We are the world's corporate memory for fraud matters, but we are not a history library. We are a smart factory producing solutions, solutions, and solutions that work to protect society now and tomorrow. Our world needs our help. Millions of companies remain on life support, and some may not make it. Bad people will destroy them if we do nothing. I know that our brilliant board, you, and our super bright future fraud professionals will never throw in the towel. You are made of steel. As my 12 years as a volunteer trustee with the panel ends, I have a charity challenge for you. Please continue to support the panel so together we can protect the nation and empower those who will one day protect us when we can no longer fight. Join us, sponsor us, give us a grant, leave us a legacy in your will. Few of us will live for 100 years, but the good you do in life can live forever, with or without an avatar. Thank you.
It's very kind of you. It's much better than me, isn't he? And speaks all these languages. I struggle with English. But on a serious point there, the use of technology is very relevant in that the criminals, you heard, during lockdown were very busy, and they've used this as an opportunity to try so many things. We've got to use technology, reverse that, and make sure that we are able to stay ahead of them.
Are you back into your presentation?
I am, yeah.
There you go.
Lovely, thank you. So for just a little bit of what we did and then where we're going next and what I think all of us ought to be looking at. Our work was we ran for 6 months, did letters to the Chancellor. This was right at the beginning of lockdown. Bear in mind, we've got hundreds of years of experience within our ranks across sectors, not just in law enforcement and legal. We shared advice. We probably, on the Pursue side, we probably disseminated, I think it was about 120 pieces of intelligence to our partners, including some of the early PPE stuff, personal protective equipment, suspicious activity about things and procurement. We saw things on the dark web and public web about furlough fraud, how you actually commit crime. And what did we see? Well, it's we saw people actually using Phoenix companies, so getting old companies that were dormant, starting them up again, bringing a young, usually clean person in as a director of that company, and then backdating when they started so they could start applying for grants. Remember, this was the most generous money the taxpayer and the country has ever given out, the biggest amount of money ever. 40% of the UK's GDP quantitative easing out to the country. And criminals thought, hooray, party time. And they did everything in lockdown, starting to figure out how to do things criminally. And that's what we saw. We saw it with our work. We saw a risk there that, like in Italy, where the mafia started looking at vulnerable companies, because if I can get a good company that can move lots of money and looks legitimate, imagine what I can do with that after the pandemic. So, and also risk of, like in 2003 to 2008, a lack of due diligence, money going out fast without due diligence. So we called for transparency and we called for publishing data. There's the first letter in 16th of June. The newspapers published it. It's myself and Rosalind Wright, Duncan Hames from Transparency International, Professor Mike Levy and others. And what we're asking here is early on, please publish the names of state aid, companies who are getting aid. Because some have been published already, a little bit, I think 16 companies. And the government said no. And you'll all know in security and fraud prevention terms, I know Mr. Hyde knows it from his time with policing, you can deter so much by making criminals think you're going to check. When you tell them you're not, what do? Yeah. So first question for you, do it by a show of hands. Why do you think the government will not publish names of companies that receive taxpayer loans? Because we were saying do it so we can data match very quickly. Why do you think they won't do that? A, government want to protect the privacy of businesses that took bounce back laws. Fair enough. B, there's something the government don't want the public to see just yet. Still not published. C, there is something one or more of the bank lenders don't want the public to see yet, or I'm not sure. What about A? Any show of hands? Government want to protect privacy of businesses. Certainly a thing that people have talked about. B, there's something that government don't want the public to see just yet. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not trying to sway you, but I'm sensing that. C, there is something that the banks don't want us to see yet. I'm torn between that one, actually, because I think well, let's have a look. What we do know is that what we started to see is that those mules who were recruited on the dark web, phishing emails started off and so on, they were all common things, all fraud we saw before, but the organized criminals got very serious and they went into it. I was told, and my charity and I, we went public with the BBC and I was told this can't happen. You can't, the systems will not allow one company or two people to get multiple loans. It'll be identified. And I was told that, David, you're wrong. It can't happen. I said, yes, it can. It's easy. What's happened? We've had the riddle of the businessman's 4 obscure firms that got 40 million of furlough cash. There's millions gone, lots of people. Why was it happening? It was because we weren't data matching. And here's the real thing, and this is still a risk. The banks, where our government money goes to the bank, and then the bank pass it to the customer who's got a grant for PPE or furlough, whatever. The banks are not checking. So $1 million goes to bank A from the government. They give it to another bank B with 50 pence in that account. Nobody thinks that's unusual because there's no crisis playbook. So what we said was another letter last August. And we're like a group sending letters. And what we said here was we need the banks to have a crisis playbook ready for money to go out again if it goes out next. Remember, we had the financial crisis, and we also need a central repository. It can be done. We've looked at it. We've talked with the banks. Some don't want it. Some do not want to match data. Now, remember what we heard earlier about the police on the front line? The police on the front line are there to protect and prevent. We can use technology, though, and here's an area. Actually, I actually met with the Lord Mayor a few weeks ago too, and the security minister. I don't know why he invited me, all the great and good. And I said, We have got to really prioritise this, because we must learn from 2008, restore trust in institutions, the police, paying your tax, being an honest person. We've got to restore them, because at the moment, whistleblowers are not protected. We don't prosecute many serious offenders. They get away with it. And I've seen these cases, you will have seen it. We've got to get rid of that Stone Age AI that banks say, oh, I can't do this. Facebook say, I can't verify somebody. Of course they can, could turn it on tomorrow. And we've got to give AI to the police for this metaverse. This is the new normal now. We are going to be living virtual and real world. Let's get these systems switched on. You've seen the things my company do. We're a Queen's Award winning family business. We've got an AI team of 12. We developed stuff that could knock the bank's socks off. It's available. They just won't turn it on. Yeah. And they won't give stuff to the police. Got to change this. And make transparency law, maybe, like the Spanish authorities have done. You've got to be transparent. And that's what's interesting. It wasn't just me writing letters to the Chancellor and the Treasury. Have a look at that report from the House of Lords a few weeks ago. They said, where's the letter about this comfort to the banks on what we're underwriting? Show us it. And Bank of England Treasury will not produce that letter to the House of Lords. See what I mean about democracy? We've got to really be careful. And otherwise, and this is, they're asking about quantitative easing. What are we doing with quantitative easing, all this money? Because it has to stop. And you know what can happen when we have a jolt. We need to be prepared. What's the plan? And I'd say be extra careful of derivatives. When I was head of fraud squad many years ago, it was during the financial crisis, lying loans, people lying about the underlying asset not existing, people cheating to get loans and mortgages, loans in commercial property. That's a big area. And it's the shadow economy that's bigger than the rest of it. And also be careful of greenwashing, because a lot of investment schemes that go out there, the underlying asset is not right, but people put their pension in it. And that's terrible for communities when people lose their pension pot. And we really need to work hard and fast. And why do it? When I was on the BBC with our International Charity Fraud Awareness Week a couple of weeks ago, I actually went into the studio, not my avatar, and my grandson was watching me, Fred. He's there watching. Fred, Alice, Polly, Margot, in 25, 30 years, will be paying for this fraud, this loss. So we've really got to get ready and do something. And I'd like to take questions, but I'll just go back to what I finished on with that avatar. I ain't gonna be around for long. Those people at the back of the room, our future investigators, our future police officers, are going to carry this forward. Our friends from Thailand, you are going to go back to Thailand and introduce fantastic new systems that make us safer and come together. We've got to start now, not wait. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Where did you see such passion and energy in a presentation? And the avatar wasn't bad either, David. Any questions for David there? Really thought-provoking yet again about who's going to pay for all of this, but just stuff that we do every day on our computers, our banking systems, everything is at risk. So,
yeah, I got quite a few questions, so bear with me. The first is, you said something that sort of clicked with me. You said that the City of London is loved by fraudsters and the criminal world. I would like to know, why do you think London is so easy for them to take advantage of?
London is the global financial capital. More money and more American banks are located in the City of London than in New York. It has the fastest flows. The currency that we have, the pound, moves internationally. The one wonderful thing about London too, we sit on the international date line. So we're between east and west of when stock markets open and close. It's a great place. Why do some fraudsters love it here? The same reason I love the United Kingdom. It's very safe. It's a safe place. But it's very easy to become a dangerous place. And I've seen that, and I'm sure you have when you've seen places around the world. I want to keep it safe.
Okay, thank you. Next thing is, what's the most common type of fraud that you come across?
Difficult to say because they're not reported very often, but a lot at the moment, the ones we've seen most are online scams where people fall for a scam. A growing one that we're seeing particularly with diaspora foreign nationals in the UK, I'm seeing every week, is romance fraud, and people being lured into, and this is linked to lockdown. During the lockdown, people were buying pets and they were nothing for sale. The bigger thing is investment schemes, putting your life savings into something that will yield maybe, 2 or 3% a month, 12% a year. Who can get that, But that is devastating for whole families.
Thank you. I think it's best I leave it there. Otherwise, we could be here all day.
No, you've lined yourself up for seeing what it's like on the other side when you're in court being challenged. So you've either got to become a barrister or a police officer. There you go.
Any more questions for David? I'm over in the corner here.
I was wondering, given the fact that so few police officers want to go into investigative work now, and the national shortage of detectives, and fraud always having been a niche market amongst detectives, where are the investigators for this work going to come from?
Well, a very similar question was asked of me by the Treasury Select Committee on the 8th of July. I'd read the transcript because that was equally passionate and evidence with some of the losses we've got. When I worked actually with Stuart Hyde, who was Chief Constable, on the National Lead, the fraud review, and how we grew all these systems, the fraud reporting service, the fraud intelligence unit, the National Lead Force for Fraud, which was my team. Yeah, there should have been more things implemented, but it's heartbreaking to see people leaving the service, going off to be a train driver or an airline pilot. They aren't doing this for the money. They're doing it because you need to feel supported. Our officers, are in a difficult position. I lost one of my detective inspectors at the start of the pandemic. He got hit by a heavy dose of COVID, a fantastic detective. And I was out with his family just a few weeks ago. They don't do this for the money. What we've got to do is a bit of soul search. I said to the Treasury Select Committee, things like now the college are doing, and all of us together. Look at all these countries here. We're friends, we're a family. People will not leave the family. They will want to stay with it and fight and join the battle if they feel they're part of the family. It's what happened in the military. It's happened to my career, why I'm here today with you, why I do what I do with my charity. That's our challenge. It's how do we keep them in? I've got some ideas, but it's for another day perhaps. Thank you for the question though.
Thank you, David. Call it a halt there.
Thank you.
So please gather, it's lunchtime. Again, don't go away empty-handed.
Do you think I could have a picture with some of the cadets too?
Of course you can.
Would that be all right?
Charlie?
Well, in the next step.
Check your pockets, Charlie.
Avatar, think like this, I'm going to carry on the fight. Or maybe Avatar as well. And to be an Avatar, we'll see what. Come to our studio, we'll have one, yes. Why not? Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.